I've been working with the question of impeccability in terms of doing the work. The nature and the need for impeccability in our practice. So this weekend I will bring a paradox related to the impeccability by working with a polarity. Because the more you learn about impeccability and learn to be impeccable, the more we actually learn the impeccability, the more we are able to be impeccable. There's the danger of us coming to believe that what happens in our work is the results of our actions. So that brings in, as I said, a paradox. So the way I will work with it is from the perspective of Chesed and Gebura. These are the two Sephiroth. I don't know if I know how to pronounce them exactly. Hesed? Chesed. And the other one, Gebura? Gevura. Chesed and Gevura. It's usually spelled, the first one is C-H-E-S-E-D, Chesed and Gebura, and Gebura G-E-B-U-R-A-H. Translated usually as mercy and severity. Severity. Or, abundance and might. Yeah, or compassion, yeah. Compassion, goodness. The usual translation is mercy. So I will work with these two qualities from a particular perspective. That doesn't mean I'll be teaching about Chesed and Gebura the way you will find it in the Kabbalah. These are some of the teachings of Kabbalah. But using these two views, or two perspectives, as the two sides of the polarity. Chesed or mercy, or love, or compassion, or abundance, is the idea that whatever happens in our work is a gift. All that we get that is good is a gift. So in some sense, this whole situation that we have here is a gift. Situation that we have of learning is a gift. What we learn is a gift. The fact that things happen that bring abundance, that bring freedom, that bring release is a gift. So to illustrate that, I'll tell you a few stories. Right? So I'll tell you a few personal stories to tell you my experience of how the spiritual learning is a gift. Even though that we need to work very hard and we need to be impeccable in our practice, that is not really what does it. although it's a necessary thing for what does it to do it. Okay. Well, meaning you can walk to a certain place. You might exert yourself a great deal to go there, but if that place isn't there, you'll never get anywhere, regardless of how much you walk. You see? If you're in a desert walking toward an oasis, it doesn't matter how much you walk if the oasis doesn't show up. See? And that's only a certain part of it, really. So, as I said, I'll tell you a few stories that will illustrate. So we'll begin at a time when I was a student. I was in college, UC Berkeley. I think I was about 23 years old, or 24 years old. And at that time, I was not really a spiritual kind of person. I was not interested in spiritual things. Not that I was not interested, but that wasn't my concern. I was a student. That's all I was. I was very good at being a student. I was studying what I was studying, into it, and doing what students do, going to parties and having political discussions and dates and, all that stuff. So there was one night, we used to go, some of our friends, to this kind of bar cafe in San Pablo called Steppenwolf. That's a place where students, professors, and acid heads used to congregate. So usually there's wine there, you can have pretzels with it and things like that. There are artists and those dark, sort of dingy kind of place. Still exists probably in Sao Paulo. Doesn't exist anymore? Steppenwolf is gone. And everybody was into Hermann Hesse at that time. That's why they like Steppenwolf. So anyway, it was midnight. A friend of mine and I, we were walking out. We just had about each one of us probably a glass of wine or something. We weren't drunk or anything. It was midnight. We came out. Our car was the other side of the street. So we were crossing the streets, and I think in the middle aisle we were crossing. And that was the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember, I was lying in the middle of the street in total pain. Nobody was around. My friend was not there. A minute or two later, the ambulance was there, and turned out there was an accident. So obviously, I missed the accident. I was in the middle of it. I don't even know what happened. I was walking, talking, was waiting for his response, and suddenly I'm lying down, about half a block away. So I understood by that time I was hit by a motorcycle that we didn't see. And so I was in very bad shape, and I remember them putting me in the ambulance. This was the only time I was inside the ambulance. And I remember when the ambulance was a very funny kind of condition, because I was in shock, you could say. And so I was alternately singing and crying at the same time, which I didn't do that much of any of those at that time. So I was really singing, crying, and people didn't know what was going on. I mean, they tried to quiet me down or whatever, and I didn't know that I was feeling good or bad, but I was definitely in pain, and they took me to the hospital, finally. Took me to Cowell Hospital. There was It turned out I was in the critical list for about 3 days or so, several surgeries and operations. But the interesting thing, although everybody thought I was on the edge, really in critical list for several days, I myself had no concern at all. That's what I remember. My only concern was, how long was this going to take? How long did I have to stay in the hospital? I wanted to get out as soon as possible. It was spring, you see. It was very nice. I look outside, it's nice and sunny, and Berkeley at that time, flowers were beautiful. I wanted to get out, and I knew I was going to get out. It was a matter of how long. The rest, the people in the hospital didn't know I was going to get out. And from what I understand, the body healed very fast, faster, about 3 times or 4 times faster than was expected. So I did get out fast after 3 weeks or so. So that's from the prevalent wisdom these days. If you have a trauma like this, you have to do all kinds of strange things. You have to see chiropractors, you do shock therapy, and all kind of release and all of that to get over it. In my experience, that didn't happen. I was, in fact, in the hospital, I was sort of, most of the time feeling sort of happy and joyous. I didn't have to go to school. In fact, I didn't go to school, missed school for a whole year as a result of it. And I yet have to work with that shock. I've been looking for it, I never found it. It took me years, I think, in my my inner experience was unfolding a few years later. Long time. Before I recognized, at some point, that's what I was experiencing when I was in the hospital, was basic trust. That when I looked outside and saw the sun, I was seeing living daylight. And that the whole atmosphere was pervaded by that kind of ease and lightness. And confidence, some kind of faith that things are going to be okay, and there's no problem. And remember, all the time till then, I didn't have spiritual experience, what people call spiritual experience, at least nothing that I recognize as spiritual experience. Sometimes I felt good, didn't know there was spiritual experience. A few years later, I discovered what that means. So a few years later, I realized what was going on at that time was some kind of a basic trust, a deep confidence that things are okay, things will be fine, whatever happens is just right. And there was a sense of ease and a relaxation and a letting go and a sense of being taken care of, and I will be taken care of. But there are a few things about that accident or that incident I didn't understand at the beginning. First of all, I don't know what happened between the time I was talking to my friend to the time that I found myself lying in my back in the middle of the road in pain, with my whole body is with all kinds of holes and broken bones or things like that. I don't remember, there was a gap. And the other thing that I didn't understand was, how did I know that I wasn't going to die? I sort of knew I wasn't going to die, although all the medical indications said there was that good possibility. Because they didn't know what happened, exactly how bad it was in terms of the brain and our organs. It's not like I felt I wasn't going to die. It wasn't that. It was like I felt the question didn't come up. I mean, it wasn't like I felt, yes, I'm not going to die, it's fine. I didn't think of dying or not dying. It was just things were fine, and I was mostly interested in going out and enjoying the spring. So those two questions. What was the gap? Obviously, there was a gap there that I missed. And the fact that there was some kind of a lack of concern about death I didn't understand. It took a long time before I regained that gap, and I understood what was happening, or what was happening in terms of lack of concern. That didn't happen till, in my experience, I was learning about the diamond guidance, the diamond body. When I was learning to experience the diamond body in a full way and be it. So as part of that exploration, at some point I started thinking about that accident. What happened? And that brought up the memory. And it occurred as a reliving, as if it was, I was actually there. So what I remembered was interesting. It wasn't what I expected, and it isn't also what many people think about in terms of trauma and what happens. And it was closer to what's called a near-death experience. You probably read about some of those. So what I remember, which I was reliving at that point, is that the moment the motorcycle was impacting the body, the moment of the impact, I was outside of the body. So at the moment of the impact, then I'll be experiencing myself looking down in the street, right? Seeing the motorcycle carrying the body half block away and depositing my body there. And a motorcycle, of course, swerving, and two people in it. And I was looking down, and it was totally peaceful. So I remember this experience, complete peace, like it was high up. And I could see the whole street. It was dark, but I could see things very clearly. There weren't cars. It was very late at night. I could see the body. And thinking about now, probably clinically I was dead. I didn't know, because nobody knew until the ambulance came, and my friend, I think, went to call the ambulance. That's what happened. Went back to the park. So I was looking, and once I look away from the street, and there is just vast night, vast darkness, pure and luminous and 100% peaceful. And there was an ease, and there was total absence of any emotions, any feelings whatsoever. So just complete freedom and complete peace, with a sense that I could just easily, happily glide into that darkness. Right? While I was experiencing that darkness, I was also aware of myself. And the interesting thing I was aware of is that I recognized I was being a beautiful sort of structure of diamonds, all colored, brilliant, shining, diamond that made up a whole structure, a whole body, whole design. That was what I later called the diamond body, diamond guidance. So from this place, right, and there was cognition, there was understanding, there was the usual sense of thoughts, but there is knowingness. Knowing this peace, knowingness how I felt, and looking down, seeing the body, and seeing that the body was in total pain. Right? But interesting thing, so I was looking at this darkness, this infinity of luminous, beautiful peace, and looking at the body was total pain. And what arose, I looked this way and that way several times. So at some point when I looked at the body, what arose was very intense love and joy. And as I experienced the love and joy, this diamond-like structure, different colors, the yellow diamond and the pink diamond glowed much more intensely, radiated. And that very moment that I experienced love and joy, and I realized that love and joy had to do with the body, with life, with being on earth. And so that love and joy basically became the force that made me happily, willingly sort of dive into the body. And then was in total pain, singing and crying at the same time. So as I said, it took several years before I regained that part of the incident. So the interesting thing about it is that what will be considered a very intense trauma, I mean, you can't have more of a physical shock than that in some sense, was at the same time a total gift, in some sense, a complete blessings. So the traumatic experience did not have traumatic effects. What it had was really the beginning of my awakening in some sense. And as you see, I didn't do anything to make it happen. I wasn't practicing. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing anything. I was coming out of a bar. I'm saying this partly just to, remind you that having a difficult experience is not necessarily a horrible thing you have to get over. That if we are open in a certain way, what we might think is a horrible experience can be an occasion of the greatest learning. It could be quite the most blessing moment probably of our lives. No, in my life, that wasn't the first trauma. Some people say, well, if it happened in childhood, probably it would have had more traumatic effects. Well, when I was a child, it was a year and a half old, 18 months old, for instance, I had polio. I almost died too. And the results of that have not been traumatic. I mean, yes, I had difficulties. But I also see that event has been one of the main blessings in my life. So you see what I'm saying here in this, by relating this story about the motorcycle accident, I'm saying that when we're working on our nature or on spiritual realization, we need to remember that we're talking about a dimension that is already there, that is the source of all of our experiences, of all of our realization. And that source or that dimension, it is of its own nature, that it is there, that it is good, and its nature is to give, to bless us, to give us its abundance. See, other thing that go along with that is that that doesn't mean, of course, if we know that our true nature is in itself a blessing, that the essential dimension is itself a blessing, doesn't mean that we don't do anything. It doesn't mean we can just waste our time and not make efforts, not be impeccable. But there is a dialogue or an interaction between the impeccability and the blessings of the spiritual dimension. It's like when I was in the hospital, I think the body healed fast because of the presence of that blessings, which I experienced then as some kind of confidence, as some kind of trust. It's like that was the beginning, at least for me, to some kind of in an unconscious way, you could say, in a non-thinking way, feeling taken care of, feeling that that there is goodness, there is abundance, things will be fine, that the universe, whatever it is, I didn't think of these things consciously then. That if we relax, if we take things easy and do the best we can, things will actually just work out and usually in a much better way than expected. So I remember the beginning of my actually consciously working and practicing, that I'll be doing whatever work I was doing at that time with great intensity. I'll be working on certain issues or certain practices of paying attention. And I remember frequently the experience is that after a while I'll get so frustrated and so stuck and so don't seem to get through, nothing seems to happen, and I keep working and applying myself, and things will be difficult, just like many people report. And my memory is that there comes a time when I'm so stuck, so frustrated, so fed up, that finally I give up. Right? And the moment I give up is usually not out of anger, but out of helplessness. Right? Recognizing, I can't do it. I don't know what to do. I mean, I think I know. I'm being told to do this and this and this and this, and I do them, but I haven't got the vaguest idea, really. And that at those times, at those moments, when I really give up from recognizing I can't do it, not in me to do it, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to do these things. And that's more of giving up. That's when I feel some kind of a release, some kind of a letting go. But it's not like a letting go. So people talk about letting go. It's more like, more accurately, at some point I realize I can't do it. And that feeling I can't do it, there is a recognition of helplessness. Feeling my incapacity, my helplessness, my smallness, my ignorance. And at that very moment, something else happens. It's like, as I recognize that helplessness, that I can't do it, as if some kind of a rain begins to happen inside. As if there is an inner rain, gentle and delicate and soft and sweet. And it is that delicate, gentle rain that really dissolves the problem, dissolves the issue, dissolves the difficulty or the barrier. It's like I had to exert myself all the way until I recognized I couldn't do it. It's not enough to exert myself. I have to exert myself to the point of recognizing that's it, that's the end, there's no more I can do. And in some sense, what I had to do was basically to come to the point of recognizing I can't do it. But that I can't do it is in some sense I quit the trying. I quit basically the mental attitude that is up to me. And at that time, when I quit that mental attitude, it's up to me, it's not a method, it's not a technique. It's not like saying, well, I have to quit for it to happen. No, I quit because I knew there was nothing more. I was, that's it. That was the end. And it is that time when like the moment of quitting, the moment of recognizing, something manifests, something arises, something descends, something opens up. Some kind of energy, some kind of consciousness, some kind of a let's say an energy or a presence or a consciousness that arises, that somehow melts me away, melts the one who's having the problem or who's trying to do something. I wouldn't even call it surrender. I couldn't surrender. I never surrendered. I never surrendered. Nobody ever surrenders. All I do is I quit, recognizing I can't do it. And it is that grace, that blessing, that energy that does it. To believe I am surrendering means I still believe I can do something. So the ego can't surrender. So that happened so many times that became clear to me. That there is something there, that there is a source, there is an energy, there is a presence, there's a consciousness that really does the work, that does the release, that brings the resolution, that brings about the letting go. And that was just these are the experiences that happened in the beginning that were not as precise or as differentiated or as clear as what happened later, but they were enough, I think, for me to develop some kind of a trust, some kind of a faith, or some kind of a confidence. Or in some sense, some knowledge, knowingness, that it is not up to me. See, I'm not the one who does it. And that if it wasn't for this other force, it wasn't for this other energy, it wasn't for this grace that can happen, I'll never be released. That nothing really, no development will happen. No transformation is possible. And this continued to be the major theme, the main thrust of the process. Came a time, during some of the main discoveries, diamond approach, discovery of the aspects and the dimensions, where there was almost a complete trust that it's happening on its own. It's not only happening on its own, it's pushing me and pulling me and showing me and releasing me and melting me and confronting me. And I got to see even the difficult type of frustrations were part of the blessing. Like every time there was a whole big problem or issue, or I'm feeling stuck or hurt or angry or terrified, it always showed at some point that was a lesson, that there was really something was coming through, and that is part of its teaching. So I got to see, believe, and in some sense know, that whatever happens is a guidance. Whatever happens is what's supposed to happen. It's the best thing that can happen. I didn't feel I needed to plan. I didn't feel I needed to know what was going to happen. Like I did what I could do. I always did what I could do. See? I always did my meditations. I always inquired. I always worked hard. And I didn't think about the results. See? Because I knew the results were not up to me. And things opened up. Even sometimes when I even believed that, like I'll be discovering things, even when I believed that wasn't it, with a great encouragement from outside to that's not it, the blessing will show itself in such a way that it will show me what is the truth. Like I remember one time I was working with some teacher, that probably one of the last people I worked with, sometime in the 70s. And I was beginning to have experiences of essence in terms of particular qualities and aspects. Recognizing truth, I was recognizing compassion and things like that. So I'll talk to my teacher, and he kept saying, no, that's not it. You're wasting your time. And I always believed my teachers. See? And I think that's part of, for me, what opened me up to the blessings. I always did what my teachers told me. I didn't question it. When my teacher said, meditate half an hour a day, I did half an hour a day. Do the calf meditation, I did the calf meditation. I didn't do anything else. So I said, well, we wanted to get together with some people and do these practices. I did that. Most of my teachers all of them were not perfect masters. Most of them didn't even have the knowledge and the understanding that I have myself now. But that wasn't a question for me. I didn't know anything. You see, what did it matter whether they were perfect or not? You see. And I think as a result of doing, well, this is a practice we're doing, go do it. So I did. As a result, things happened. I didn't know what was going to happen, but happened. But anyway, so when this teacher told me that's not it, I believed it. So I worked very hard at forgetting what I was experiencing. Like I was experiencing this kind of presence and energy will come in once in a while when I meditate, goes up in my spine and does this and that. He said, no, that's not it. I said, okay, that's not it. So let's forget it. So I worked very hard, I remember, for a few weeks to get rid of all of that. Finally, I got rid of it. And finally, I sat, relaxed, watching TV one night. Good, it's all gone. That's not it. I didn't want to be distracted. You see? So when I was watching TV, I'm completely relaxed. Right? Suddenly, boom, this whole thing comes in, fills my whole consciousness. With the recognition that that was me. And at that moment, I knew that teacher just didn't know. Or didn't know the thing I was experiencing, he knew other things. See? I wasn't even angry at him. See? Didn't hate him, wasn't angry. I just knew he didn't know that. He knew other things. But, that experience, suddenly, this intense, full presence arises and was that my doing? I wasn't trying to get rid of it. You see? In fact, I worked very hard getting rid of it, with a great encouragement from my teacher to get rid of it. And when I was successful in getting rid of it, and relaxed, that's when it came up fully. And I realized, every time I'm relaxed, that's what happens. I become myself. That inner consciousness, that presence was there. I was relaxed. I wasn't trying to do anything. I thought I was successful. That's what's there. The moment I recognized that was me, that showed me very clearly what is my work, which is never to lose sight of that. That's when the impeccability comes. See? So here's another example where really you can't say I did it. I didn't do it. In fact, I did the opposite. So it was very clear to me. It wasn't up to me. It was, in fact, in spite of me that was happening. I remember, just before that time, I went and saw one psychic. The psychic reading people get, I get one psychic reading. I wanted to know what's going on. And the woman told me, well, you're changing a lot in spite of you. It was true in spite of me. I wasn't. It's not only I didn't know about it, I wasn't even interested in these things. I didn't think that was it. And then, of course, that presence continued. My effort was in staying in touch with it. How it developed wasn't my doing. It developed, little by little, manifested qualities. Look, in the beginning it was mostly soul presence, just fullness of presence, I felt human, real. There'll come a time, maybe I'm working on some issues, sometimes not, until just I wake up next morning, it's a different color, different quality, and different sense and meaning. And it'll stay like this for weeks. Same quality will stay for weeks, months sometimes. Because one of the first qualities I experienced was the value aspect, the amber aspect, sweet, full. That will arise, and that will continue throughout. Meaning that whenever I'm relaxed, whenever I'm not distracted, that's what I find. That's this experience. That's what made me understand what a station is. Station means that's where you are. Whenever you're relaxed, that's where you find yourself. So, it was obvious to me I didn't change it. I didn't even know that it was going to be like there is such a thing. I remember one time I was sitting in a cafe, College Avenue, talking to a friend of mine, telling him about how lately I'm not feeling personal somehow, like I couldn't be personal. I never even thought about being personal and impersonal before that. It wasn't even a concern. Just came out of nowhere, just with discussion. I was talking about, somehow lately I don't feel personal for some reason. Yeah. See, my mind wasn't sophisticated enough to think of these things. Or at least I probably read them in books, but I never registered them in my experience, just like most people do. Read them in books, when it comes to your experience, you forget you read them. So I was talking about I can't be personal. Suddenly this pearl pops out of my chest. And this apricot rain falls all over the cafe. So that continued, the various qualities and the dimensions. See. But it became clear at some point, as I was recognizing diamond guidance, and as I remember that experience from the accident, that the guidance was coming from that presence, from that diamond guidance. And my job became clear then, which is to serve that guidance. I didn't know what was supposed to happen to me, or to anybody, and by that time, when I wasn't together, the diamond guidance was already working with people. I didn't know what was supposed to happen to the students or to the group, so I just listened and obeyed. And did my job at exploring whatever arises. When there were difficulties, I just dealt with them. And dealing with the difficulty always revealed there was a good reason behind it. So you see what I mean when I say it's all a gift. Okay. It has always been clear to me that if it was up to me, nothing would have happened. I probably would have made a terrible job out of it. But I never had the intelligence, the capacity, the willpower, the discrimination, enough love, or any of that to really make that happen. No way. I still feel that way. So that's why I always talk about discovery, in the sense I didn't really know what was going to come. But at some point there was the trust that it is happening, it's going to continue happening. And even if I make a mistake, I'll still learn from it. I mean, there kind of time like it was like a magical thing in some sense. It's like living in a magical atmosphere. Feeling sort of trapped by all kind of exquisite presences. Feeling and recognizing that there isn't only holding and nourishment and blessing, but this blessing comes also as guidance, as knowledge, as So I remember one time I went to another psychic, and I remember that was early on in the 70s, and I think went with Sandra one time. Somebody else went to San Francisco to this old woman in her 80s. And everybody used to go, you go in groups, like 20, 30 people. Everybody has a question, and they answer your question. What you do is you write your answer on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and write your name in the envelope. Right? And you give it to the woman, and she answers everybody's question. And I recognize she takes the envelope, she doesn't read it, she just looks at the name and she answers. She didn't open the envelope. So finally she gets an envelope, it was my name, she mentioned my name. My question, I had a problem with my stomach at that time. I wanted to know what to do with my stomach. I was almost becoming ulceric. So she got the letter, she looked, and she didn't read it, and she said, in this lifetime, you will get everything that you want, materially and spiritually. And then, I said, by the way, about your stomach. Just every time you feel your stomach upset, just put your hand in your stomach. So that I did, and it became a habit. You see, my stomach was healed a long time ago, and I did get everything I wanted, both materially and spiritually. But at that time, when she said, I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't even know what I wanted. You see? But when I say I got everything I wanted, materially and spiritually, I also mean it's all a gift. I don't feel it is my doing. I don't feel like, it's true I worked hard. Always, worked hard on it. I always did that. See? But what I got, I didn't even know, you see. That was there. I didn't even know I wanted it. In fact, I didn't know exactly what I want until very, very much later. See, when the inner development was progressing in a very fast way, in the sense I'll be going through aspects and issues so intensely. I can remember, for instance, when the soul was developing and revealing the essential aspects, at some point the lataif opened up, right? And I remember all the lataif opened up in 1 week. Within 1 week, they just ping, 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 opened up just like that, without me doing much. I was just being grateful. That's all I was doing. See? But then of course, the boundless dimension begin to arise, beginning with the living daylight, and but I didn't know really exactly what I wanted until at some point when I was experiencing the oneness of existence, the whole universe as one presence that was all love and goodness and divinity, which I took it for me meant divine being or God, in the sense all love, all grace, or beauty, which by itself was a gift. There was no way I could get something like that, you see. Nobody can get something like that. So I realized at some point, my heart wasn't satisfied for some reason. And I had tremendous guilt. I thought, how can I not be satisfied with God? See? So my heart wasn't satisfied. So then, when I look at how come my heart was not satisfied, the soul got focused more around the heart area. And there was a very intense, deep longing. I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, all along, what was coming up was things I didn't know about anyway. But there was very deep place, there's something I wanted I didn't know. But I kept feeling I wanted it. So at some point, when the soul sort of around the heart, and then the soul becomes empty, the soul itself becomes empty. So I call it the state of poverty. Like I recognize I have nothing, there's nothing to me. So the understanding that it's all a gift was complete then. I recognize not only I wasn't doing it, I haven't got anything. I didn't really have presence, I didn't really have mind, I didn't have qualities, I didn't have accomplishments, I didn't have a life. It's not only it wasn't my result of my effort, it was a gift. I didn't even own it. Could go any moment. See? Couldn't possess it. I didn't own it. It wasn't mine. It was alone in some sense. See? So recognizing that, then the soul manifested in the heart as complete empty. There was nothing there. The soul was totally empty. And the heart, when the soul was totally empty, became completely transparent around the heart. Because completely, it was empty even of existence. Even its existence wasn't itself. When that happens, the heart became a window. And in the window, right, I saw this radiant, luminous darkness. A dazzling darkness. The moment I saw that, the heart felt, yes. That is the one I love. See? It was instant recognition. And then I recognized the source of all the blessing, all the grace, all the experiences, all the knowledge, all the guidance. In fact, at that point, the experience was, in some sense, devastating. In the sense, it was total. In the sense, it showed me really what I have been wanting all my life without even knowing it. In the sense, in some place in my heart, I knew I was away from something. At that moment, I recognized I was exactly where I ought to be. That's shifted the practice from never forgetting the presence to never forgetting the source. Which is a much more subtle thing, how not to forget the source. Because the source is not exactly presence, it's beyond presence. And then the development after that is what I call the journey of descent. And again, it's a gift, in some sense, which is basically that source integrating the soul, integrating the life of the soul, of the soul, so that the soul becomes, in some sense, the window or the vehicle for this mystery. So really the process went from working with the personality to experiencing the soul, to experiencing essence with all its aspects and dimension, to experiencing being and its boundlessness, to experiencing the absolute or the source. And then the absolute or the source integrating the rest, all what have gone before it, into what I call at some point the non-dual absolute. Which is basically experiencing oneself, myself, as this vastness, this vast mystery. And that all that we behold, all that we see, all appearance, all people, all walls, all objects, are nothing but crystalline glimmerings within that vastness. Everything is like a multifaceted, colorful, completely transparent clarity that is completely transparent to that luminous darkness. Where this luminous clarity that is everything is itself has a sweetness of love, is itself the blessing, is itself the grace. But what I find also, really what happens as the absolute is integrated, it becomes non-dual with everything. What becomes important after a while is not these conditions of realization, not these vast spaces and mysterious states. What takes precedence then is how to live in the world. That really the greatest gift is not that I recognize my nature as the absolute, or I can experience the non-duality of the absolute, but in being able to live in the world and act from the perspective of that absolute. So that way the soul becomes transparent to that absolute, which then feels as an intimacy with everything, with the world. The question then is not having experience, but action. Acting from that place is really what matters. To truly interact with other people and live in the world with true sensitivity, with true intimacy. Being with somebody else and experiencing the other person completely alone, without any reaction, ideas, positions. Hope or fears or anything like just as the individual is, and seeing at the same moment that the individual, regardless where they are, whether they love me or hate me, that given enough time, everything I see is understandable. And being able to bring in the compassion and the sensitivity and the lovingness and the intelligence to bear in those interactions so that the other person can reveal that understanding about themselves. Just a gift again. See? So it's a subtle matter, you see, here, because when we get then to the boundless dimensions and experience myself, experience yourself as the presence itself, as the true nature itself, it is difficult, it is possible to forget the gift, because you could tend to believe, well, I am the source of everything. So how do you keep that balance? Recognizing you are the source of everything, at the same time recognize everything is a gift. See? But the path, basically, really, what is based on and what generates is a trustingness. So I call it basic trust. Buddhism, they call it trustful confidence. Trustful confidence. Christianity, of course, is called faith. In Islam, it's called iman, which means it's a word that combines belief and faith together. Which necessitates recognition of our limitations, of our helplessness. At the same time, this confidence or this trust that just because I'm helpless doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You see, it's not bad news. See, the good news is that there is a nature, there is a reality. That is a source of guidance. That is a source of functions as guidance. And the guidance is a function of grace, of blessings. And the blessing is itself the various experiences that happens, and the knowledge itself, and the realizations. And it is that blessing, that grace, which is the action of the true nature, the loving action of true nature, is really what makes it possible, what make it happen. The word I usually prefer to use for that grace, for that blessing, is the Sufi word, which is barakah. The reason I like the word barakah, it is more inclusive than the word blessing or grace. The word blessing or grace tend to be seen from purely spiritual way. In the sense, when people talk about grace, they mean something they've had in a spiritual experience of sort. While the word barakah does not have that. The word barakah in the Sufi word, which is an Arabic word, has that it is spiritual grace, but in all dimensions. It means also good fortune. It means good luck. Means good influence. So it can be materially, for instance. It can be in terms of health, physical health, terms of your life going right, getting the right kind of job, see, having the right kind of relationship. But also has to do with spiritual grace in terms of actual surrender, actual transformation, the actual showering of blessings. Whether it's specific and then they see it as an actual experience of blessing, or general in the sense of the overall optimizing force. B-A-R-A-K-A. Barakah.
In Hebrew it's Baruch.
Yeah, the same one as Baruch. Yeah.
Which means blessed.
Yeah. So what I'm bringing here, and because we've been talking with impeccability, which shows the place of our effort, trying to contrast it with the blessing, with the grace, with the barakah that is necessary, that is needed. You see, that without it, the work won't happen. Our life won't go right. So it is possible if we really understand the teaching, understand the path, to experience, to be aware of the sense of barakah, of blessing, of grace, on all of our life, in all our situations. You know, physically, psychologically, spiritually. But we really need to sort of open to it. We need to recognize it is there. We need to acknowledge, admit it is there. See? It wouldn't, it tends not to function much. We tend not to experience it if we're not open to it, if we have resistance against it, if we oppose it. See? That's why in our path, you know, because my experience has always been that it's not me, I'm not the one who's doing it. It's always a gift. It's always a blessing. It's always unexpected. See, that the path has in it inherently the question of allowing and openness, not knowing. But all of that, you see, allowing, openness, not knowing, all these attitudes are based on that trust, on that faith that something will do it. It's going to work out by us relaxing, by us letting be. See?